the leader of Yesh Atid, Knesset member Yair Lapid.
I'm here.
You're here, thank God.
Thank you. Shimon Peres is always a hard act to follow. Good morning to you all. It is no secret that the Prime Minister and I have had some disagreements, and some of the most important ones have been on the diplomatic front. It is amazing that, having sat with the Prime Minister as a member of the Security Cabinet for nearly 2 years, I still cannot describe his plan for our future security. And sadly, I'm not alone. I don't think anyone could outline where the Prime Minister thinks we should go from here. Not even he can describe his own plan, because what I have learned from sitting next to him in the Security Cabinet is that he has no plan. By contrast, I want to clearly outline my approach today and invite the Prime Minister to do likewise, so that the public can look, examine, and discuss our two plans in the days ahead. For too long, security issues in our countries have been the subject of a debate between two mistakes. The left is wrong for blaming only Israel for the failure of the negotiations, naively assuming, despite all evidence, that peace is easy to achieve if only we say yes to the Palestinians. The right, on the other hand, wrongly believes that no agreement is worthwhile and we are better off doing nothing. My approach comes from a very different set of assumptions. I believe that peace will be very difficult to achieve, but an agreement is not a gift we give the Palestinians. Rather, separation from them is the very best way to ensure our country's future security and prosperity. The State of Israel will defeat any enemy that threatens our security. But absorbing 4 million Palestinians will make us less secure and make it more difficult for us to remain both a Jewish and a democratic state, and will further ruin our relationship with the United States and the international community. Our relationship with the United States and other Western countries is a vital strategic asset for Israel. But it is an asset that is depreciating under the Prime Minister. This is why the world isn't rushing to reject President Abbas's request for unilateral recognition at the UN Security Council. The United States, our closest ally, is debating for the first time whether or not to veto such a resolution. It's just another sign, not the first, of the ongoing damage being done to our relations with the US. I warned of this more than once in the past year inside the Security Cabinet and in open forums, but nothing has been done to repair the damage. 3 weeks ago, during a meeting of the Israeli Security Cabinet, we were shown the shocking pictures from the massacre carried out by 2 Palestinian terrorists in a synagogue here in Jerusalem. As the son of a Holocaust survivor, I was on the verge of tears. Photographs of Jews wrapped in the prayer shawls, lying in their own blood, takes us back to the darkest moments in Jewish history. But something else also caught my attention and the attention of others. The massacre, which was carried out with axes was an obvious copycat of ISIS. The heroes of those young Palestinians are people in black masks. It is alarming to see the evidence that ISIS terrorists are the new idols of young Palestinians. But our concern about ISIS and Iran is shared by many Arab countries and Arab leaders. That creates new opportunities for Israeli diplomacy, opportunities which we cannot afford to ignore. We've been searching for this change for a while now, but we should remember that all the roads leads to the same solution. The Israelis and the Palestinians need to separate from one another. The two-state solution is seen by many Israelis as a gift we might offer to the Palestinians. They are wrong. Separation from the Palestinians is an Israeli strategic interest. Aside from the diplomatic significance, a separation is a critical social and economic interest for us. Separating from the Palestinians will jumpstart the Israeli economy and allow us to quickly reach a GDP per head of almost $50,000. It will create a new economic market for us around the size of Europe and open additional markets within Europe itself. It will allow us to bring down taxes, add to our healthcare and education systems, and pave the way for the next generation of the startup nation. However, there is no economy without real security. We need to ensure there is a clear border between us and them, a geographic border, a demographic border, a secured border which we can defend. We are not talking, unfortunately, about peace. Certainly not for the first few years, but a solid agreement which will lead to a clear separation between two people who can't live together in the same land. An agreement like this can only work if Israel's security interests are guaranteed in full, no less. Of course, it would be nice if the two sides trusted each other. But after 100 years of conflict, trust is not something that's written in an agreement and then immediately comes to fruition. Give us 10 years of living separately and security and securely, and then we can talk about trust. Our agreements with Egypt and Jordan weren't based on trust, but on strict mutual guarantees. That's why those agreements are holding despite the changes in the region. Israel will not start the long and agonizing process of removing the isolated settlements, which will allow a separation without robust and long-lasting guarantees that any agreement signals the end of the conflict and the removal of threats from our borders. Which brings us back to the question, how do we get there? Another round of bilateral talks won't be different from the previous ones. The geography is the same geography, the fears are the same fears, the history is the same history. What we need to change isn't what we talk about, but who we are talking with. In place of the bilateral talks, we must work for regional dialogue, which will lead to a regional solution. Without the moderate Arab world engaged and taking responsibility, the Palestinians will never dare reach a deal. They fear being branded traitors against Islam and the Arab ethos. When they watch TV, they can see every day what happens to Muslims when more radical Muslims believe they are traitors. As long as the Arab states aren't around the table, the Palestinians will always have to take harder positions. There won't be a long-term solution for Gaza without Egypt playing a central role. There won't be a solution for the future status of the West Bank without Jordan being involved. The same is true for regional security arrangements, Egypt and Jordan, alongside the moderate Arab states like Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states, must take an active part in the negotiations for a regional agreement. Though we were perfectly willing to live alongside these nations in peace for decades, we were their most important and prominent enemy. But today, they have real enemies, enemies bent on destroying their regimes. These are the same enemies we also face: Iran, the Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and radical Islam more generally. At the end of March, immediately after the Israeli election, the Arab League will meet in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. The heads of state will be present. And its head will be the President of Egypt, General Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. It is an opportunity we must not miss. Egypt, along with Saudi Arabia, leads the alliance of moderate states, an informal coalition of Arab countries which share an interest working with the West to stop the advance of radical Islam. Israel should be an integral part of that coalition.